Hello. Today I want to talk about opinions and arguments. An opinion is a personal or general view, belief, preference, or judgment. It could be constructed from some factual details that are connected with a subjective explanation of the whole thing, or the whole thing can be just a subjective story without any facts or arguments. We don't create opinions every day, unfortunately. Most of us form an opinion and then keep repeating it the next day, the next month, and the next year. Even though everything changes, and even though we learn new things, we keep repeating many of our old, stale opinions. So how do we create opinion? When you think about something or observe something, you make a conclusion about that thing, and from that conclusion you form an opinion. So what happens when you make a wrong conclusion? Well, then your opinion will be not in line with reality. It will be delusion. Now, the solution to avoid wrong conclusions and delusion is to not make any conclusion. Instead, you think in probabilities. Instead of saying, this is like that, you say, this is maybe like that, or probably, or likely, or almost certainly, or any other kind of term for probability. So when you make a conclusion, you say, this is the end. You think you know what it is. You don't create room for more exploration, for more information to come in and shape your opinion. But when you say this is maybe like that, you are open to find out if you are right or how close to reality you are. You become open for new information. Now we create conclusions because we don't want to admit that we don't know. We are afraid admitting that. We need to become more comfortable not knowing. After all, what we don't know is almost everything. Now, creating opinions should be like breathing. When you need an opinion, you create it from the information you have at that moment. You express it and then let it go. But when you create an opinion from a conclusion, you keep it tight, you repeat it, you start to identify it with it. You create your personality around it. You need to let that opinion go, or you hold it loosely by saying it's maybe like that. Maybe is a loose hold on information, and it prevents us from resisting and suffering when we realize that our opinion was wrong or unrealistic. Now, most opinions have no value because they're just preferences, saying you like that or dislike, or you approve or disapprove something, or thinking how things should be to be fair. Now, to give value to an opinion, we have to support it with some facts and arguments to explain why we have those opinions. Now, arguments are statements with the purpose of explanation, justification, or persuasion. When we have an explanation of opinion form in our mind, we have a chance to check those facts and arguments on the internet and to find more perspectives. You can check with a search engine or a AI program or on a social media platform, but I think it's best to have people as a source of information. You go to a specific person, someone who can explain things very clearly using very solid arguments. I know many people whose opinions I highly value. And one of those people is Asmongold. He is a very successful content creator, streamer and YouTuber. The reason why I chose him as an example is whenever I think about the word argument, I often think about him. I have watched him a lot over the last 7 years, and I think I understand him quite well. He has a lot of experience with talking and creating very solid arguments. Now, when you want to make a valid or a strong arguments, you need to consider whether it is reasonable, relevant, sufficient, do all parts fit together, and does it work in different situations. And Asmongold does all of that very well. So when you are making an argument, you also have to ask yourself, why are you making it? Do you want to be right, or do you want to come closer to the truth of reality? The first one serves you and your ego, and the second one serves everyone, and serves you even more than if you want to be right in the long term. Because there's nothing better than to live in reality. It's very useful to understand reality so that you can adapt to reality instead of pushing your subjective ideas. Because when those ideas are unrealistic, your pushing will just create problems and suffering for yourself and everyone around you. So I live consciously as much as I can because I want to live in reality. And the most important reason why I want to do that is because reality is a place of no suffering. We suffer when we resist reality, when we cannot accept that things are not going the way we want them to, when we cannot let go of our delusions or unrealistic expectations. And Asmongold also wants to live in reality. That is very important for him. You don't need to hear him say it to know it's true. By listening him to speak, you can see that he's a very honest person. He's comfortable saying when he doesn't know something. He thinks in probabilities and uses words like maybe and probably a lot. So he is very successful in everything he wants to be successful in. And you can only be that much successful if you understand reality very well. If you know what needs to be done to get what you want. So he's a very good problem solver. He thinks about causes and effects. What is the reason something happens, or what might happen if you do something? So he connects facts about those causes and effects and connects them and creates very solid arguments to explain them. The way he presents his arguments is often blunt, crude, or just brutally honest. And we need that in our society. We don't have enough of it. In today's modern times, we have too much comfort, too much soft language, too much cuddling and approving of unhealthy and harmful behavior. And all those causes have created a weak society with people full of delusions. We all have delusions, and people have always had delusions, but today people have too many delusions. And I want to get rid of my delusions. And for that I find that blunt and very honest approach have the most chance to be successful at that. So it can be very refreshing listening to someone who is brutally honest. So that's why I enjoy listening to Asmongold. His explanation and approach will not be effective for everyone. One reason is that people have too many delusions to be able to understand the reality of his words. Other reason is that some people are rarely thinking about the long-term consequences and cannot accept the necessary actions to successfully solve the problem. So when we are looking for the solution of a problem. We need to first identify the root cause of a problem and address it directly, or the problem will just keep on coming back. It is often very difficult to do that. That's why you need to listen to other people's perspective. Some of them might have found the cause, the root cause, or they can help you find it. And Asmongold often gives effective solution because he's addressing the root cause of a problem. Now, sometimes I don't agree with his solutions, but I agree with his analysis of the situation. And for me, that's even more important than the solutions. It's more important that the problems get solved and that the responsible people get accountable for their actions than what should be their punishment. Now, many people will not like him because of his solutions and suggested punishments. They may think he's too extreme, or they might not like his arguments because the way he looks or the way he lives his life. And those are completely wrong conclusions. Very rarely is a person's appearance connected to their arguments. A valid reason to dismiss someone's arguments could be if you don't understand them. And that is the biggest problem with arguments. For some arguments, you have to have a certain level of intelligence to be able to understand them. If you don't understand something, you need to ask more questions. You need to find simpler explanation. Sometimes if you read through comments, you can find more explanation. Now, arguments serve to explain things, and we either understand them and accept, or we find counter-arguments for our way of thinking. What many people do is they use emotional arguments or emotional counter-arguments. Now, most emotional arguments appeal to negative emotions. They attempt to persuade by manipulating feelings and bypassing rational thinking. The most common emotion used for manipulations are anger, fear, guilt, pity, and pride. I don't value those emotional arguments much because they usually don't address the root cause of the problem or long-term consequences. They usually focus mostly on subjective desires that often create problems and suffering. And if you are using emotional counter-arguments, you accomplish nothing except validating your feelings. And another way to fail at a counter-argument is if you do not address the correct context. If you are ignoring context, you are ignoring reality, or you're just wanting to push your perspective. If you want to know reality, if you care about it, you will always make sure to know the correct context. And Asmongold is rarely using emotional arguments, and he always is interested in correct context. Now, he often watches other people's videos and gives logical counter-arguments. And I think this is a very useful type of content. You see, when a person creates a video, they usually research the topic, listen to several perspectives, and report their findings and give some of their own opinions and arguments. Then you have a person like Asmongold who watches that video and gives his arguments, counter-arguments, and perspectives. And he also reads chat, which contributes with many comments. And some of those comments are sometimes useful. And he reads those useful comments and expands on it even more. And he also looks on the internet for more perspective. And in the end, you get many perspectives on a topic that's been discussed in a single video. And when Asmongold listens to a person and responds to them, he is usually addressing their arguments, not them personally. Even if they talk about him in negative way and they insult him, he can address their arguments directly and point out what he agrees with and what he doesn't. So this is another way how your arguments gain even more value, when you can separate them from person. And few other reasons why I respect Asmongold and value his content. He has a fantastic memory. He is precise with his words. He has a wide variety of content coverage from all over the world. He covers very important topics that many would be uncomfortable or afraid to talk about. And because of that, he fills a very important role in our society. I think he understands human behavior quite well, and he can explain it in very interesting and sometimes funny ways. He even acknowledges sometimes that he is biased about the topic, that his solutions are in his best interest. And I think his opinions are valuable. In today's society, where people are mostly liking and disliking something and choosing sides, he can be a voice of reason. He can point out perspectives that are unburdened with likes or dislikes. He's not without likes or dislikes, but he can manage that subjective side and focus on the realistic side. He can calmly explain anything, even if faced with very disrespectful tone, even if people are yelling at him. He rarely yells, and this shows acceptance. Another thing that shows acceptance is one of his common phrases, "It is what it is." I recognize a lot of acceptance in him, and because of that I think that he lives closer to reality than most people. And when you live like that, you may not know reality about many things, but your guesses about those things are more accurate. So I think when Asmon is just guessing about something, he's often very close to reality. That's all. Thank you for listening. If you thought this video was interesting and useful, share it with someone. And remember, your opinions should be flexible, so you can drop them or change when they are wrong. Also, never forget the context. And when you are listening to someone, don't forget on them personally. Focus on their arguments and their actions.